Welcome back to another episode of How to Start a Bookkeeping Business. And today's theme is going to be all about keeping it simple. I get questions literally every single day. People are asking me so many complicated questions. And honestly, I think you are overthinking things. If you know anything about me, I like to keep it simple. I like to keep my strategy simple, my processes simple. I like to keep my day-to-day tasks simple. Some people think if you overcomplicate things, if you add more steps and make things more complex, then for whatever reason, that makes you feel like you're doing things more correctly. But I cannot disagree with that more. I think if you are able to take something as complex as starting a business or something as complex as doing bookkeeping for a business, if you're able to take something like that and then dumb it down into the most basic, simplest steps, I think that is the best way to do it. That means you truly understand what you're doing. You have the confidence that you're doing things correctly. So, with that being said, I'm going to give you some tips and some pointers on keeping things simple. And I'm going to focus specifically on learning bookkeeping in QuickBooks and delivering customer service or onboarding clients. So if you know anything about what I talk about, starting a bookkeeping business is a 4-step process. First step, learn QuickBooks and bookkeeping. Second step, sales and marketing. Third step, customer service. And fourth step, you already know, work really, really hard. I already have a ton of videos on sales and marketing, so I'm not going to focus on that today. I also have to say I have a lot of links in the description of this video with a ton of resources. Some are free, some are not free. Check out all of the resources that I have for you if you are trying to learn how to start a bookkeeping business. Okay, let's jump right into it. The theme is keeping things simple. So let's start off with bookkeeping. So many people are like, how do I learn bookkeeping? And honestly, bookkeeping is pretty simple. Like, this is the first step of starting a bookkeeping business, but it's the easiest step. And if you are watching this video and if you already know bookkeeping in QuickBooks, just maybe fast forward 3 or 4 minutes and get to the customer service and onboarding clients portion of the video, because I promise you want to stick around. There's going to be a ton of good tips and tricks and advice on how to start a bookkeeping business, but keeping things simple and not stressing out too much. So with bookkeeping, honestly, this is the easiest part about starting a bookkeeping business, but I see so often people spend way too much time. They try to become a bookkeeping expert or a QuickBooks expert before they even get started. There are so many steps. Like, if you think about like a pie chart, step number 1, learning bookkeeping in QuickBooks, that's like 10% of the pie chart. There's another 90% that you have to do and accomplish before you can like really call yourself a successful bookkeeping business owner. So don't spend 90% of your time on this 10% piece of the pie chart that is learning bookkeeping in QuickBooks. Seriously, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, maybe 2 months if you like to take your time and are kind of a slower learner, but like no more than 2 months, seriously, on learning this stuff. I recommend 2 weeks, like that's all you need. So for bookkeeping, you really just need to understand the fundamentals. And honestly, there are thousands of bookkeepers who don't understand this stuff. So if you want to get started and then kind of learn as you go, I think that's totally fine. Like, you do not need to be a debits and credits master. You do not need to know everything there is to know about chart of accounts and financial reports to get started. So here's the bare basics, the bare minimum. And like I said before, I do have a course in the description of this video where I teach you all this stuff in great detail, but just to go over the bare basics, the bare minimum for bookkeeping fundamentals, you need to understand debits and credits. That's non-negotiable. You need to understand how debits and credits affect assets, liabilities, and equity. Like, that is, you need to know that. And then you also need to understand the different chart of accounts when it comes to assets like prepaid expenses, obviously buildings and vehicles, loans to others or notes receivable, accounts receivable. You need to understand assets, and then liabilities. You have mortgages and notes payable and credit cards, payroll liabilities, sales tax liabilities, and then equity. You've got retained earnings, net income, owner's investment, owners pay, and there are a ton of other chart of accounts that go into assets, liabilities, and equity, but you at least need to understand the fundamentals, the bare basics of assets, liabilities, and equity, and how that affects your chart of accounts. And then finally, you need to understand financial reports. The two most common would be your profit and loss and your balance sheet. A profit and loss is super straightforward. Income on the top, expenses on the bottom, net income at the very bottom. How much money did you make? And then the balance sheet gets a little bit more complicated. We've got assets and liabilities and equity on the balance sheet. But at a bare minimum, debits and credits, assets, liabilities, and equity, and profit and loss, balance sheet, that's what you need to understand for bookkeeping fundamentals. You could probably learn all of that in 2 weeks by reading a book or buying a course or watching YouTube videos. Now we have QuickBooks. QuickBooks is a beast. QuickBooks is harder than bookkeeping fundamentals. So to actually learn QuickBooks is going to take you years. Like literally, it's going to take you multiple years. I am still learning new things about QuickBooks today, and I've been in business for 3 years. And then QuickBooks is constantly changing. So you might learn something today, but it's going to change tomorrow. So you need to learn the new format tomorrow. So QuickBooks is a long journey. It's way harder than bookkeeping itself. The best way to familiarize yourself with QuickBooks, become a certified QuickBooks Pro Advisor. That's my number one recommendation. You can do it for free. You can probably pass the course in 2 to 3 weeks. And then you can become a certified QuickBooks Pro Advisor. And then seriously, don't worry about mastering QuickBooks. Once you get your first client, then you can worry about figuring everything out. But until you get your first client, it doesn't matter. Becoming a certified QuickBooks Pro Advisor should give you enough skills to at least get started. And then once you get started, you can experiment with a fake account. You can actually create a fake QuickBooks account and you can experiment with that. You can create invoices and bills, and you can run accounts receivable, aging reports, and you can manipulate the chart of accounts. You can add vendors and customers, and you can experiment with a fake account that you can create in QuickBooks, and then you can learn whatever you want to learn. Okay, so that's enough about bookkeeping in QuickBooks. Now let's move on to keeping things simple with onboarding clients. So people ask me all the time, like, how do I onboard a client? And that is a genuine concern. It took me about 2 years to really master this process, but I have broken it down into 4 steps. And the key here to onboarding clients, you need to keep in mind, you have not been paid yet. So you need to basically work as little as possible because you want to protect yourself as the business owner. Like, you haven't gotten paid yet, so don't do any more work than you absolutely have to. It's all starting with the sales consultation. This is usually a 10-minute phone call, and the whole goal of this call is to see if you could even potentially work with this client. So, number one question that you should ask, are you using QuickBooks Online? If they are, great. If they're not, are you willing to switch to QuickBooks Online? If they are, great. If they're not, the conversation stops there. I only work with QuickBooks Online. So if you're not willing to switch to QuickBooks Online, we can't work together. It's that simple. If you are using QuickBooks Online, is it updated? Do you have accurate information in your QuickBooks Online? If they do, that's great. All they need to do is invite you to their QuickBooks, and then you can give them an accurate quote. If they don't have updated and accurate information in their QuickBooks, then they're going to need to send you their 3 most recent bank statements and credit card statements. And that's all the information you need to give them a quote. I will usually ask them, how many bank accounts do you have? How many credit card accounts do you have? Do you have multiple QuickBooks accounts? Do you just need bookkeeping currently? Or do you need me to go back to 2023 and do all of your bookkeeping for 12 months in 2023 and then continue in 2024? There's just a few basic questions like that you can ask during your 10-minute sales consultation. And then once you're done, you need to get one of 2 things. 3 most recent bank statements and credit card statements, or invite to their QuickBooks account. And then once you get that, now all you need to do is add up their 3 most recent months of transactions. So look at their bank. If we're looking at it in February, I'm going to go back and look at January, December, and November. And I'm going to count all of their transactions from their bank account, savings account, credit card accounts, and add those up. And then you divide that by 3. And here is their average monthly transactions. And then multiply that by either 2 or 2.5 or 3, depending on how much you want to charge. And that is their monthly bookkeeping quote. So for example, if they had 600 transactions over the past 3 months, divide that by 3, they have on average 200 transactions per month. Now multiply that by 2 or 3. So you're going to either charge them somewhere between $400 and $600 per month to do their bookkeeping. If they need bookkeeping for a whole year, that's $600 times 12. Yes, that's a lot of money, but people are willing to pay that if you are a good bookkeeper. So don't sell yourself short. Once they accept your quote, now you send them the client agreement. And I have one for sale on my website, or you can just make one up yourself. It's a very basic document. It just outlines all of the expectations up front. I use PandaDoc to electronically deliver my documents. I also have a link in the description of this video. You can sign up for PandaDoc. And then once they sign the agreement, I will send them their invoice. Once they pay their invoice, we're good to go. I can work for you, but I don't do anything else until they pay their invoice. So if you haven't noticed already, the whole theme, keeping it simple, the only work that I've done during this onboarding process is a 10-minute sales consultation, a 10-minute review of their books to count their transactions, and then I send them an invoice. I send them a quote and an invoice, and that's it. Like no more than 30 minutes of work to quote and onboard and get paid by a new client. Keep it simple. Don't do too much work up front. Protect yourself, because seriously, I'm telling you from experience, I have gone through this whole process with a bunch of people and then I never hear from them again. So they weren't serious about hiring me. So thank God I did not start doing their bookkeeping before they paid, because maybe I would have done a month or 2 months of bookkeeping and I never would have gotten paid. So protect yourself. Don't do any work that you don't have to until you get paid. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is customer service. And this is the most important part about running a successful bookkeeping business, because you've already spent so much time learning bookkeeping in QuickBooks, and you spent a ton of time doing sales and marketing, and you just spent 30 minutes at least onboarding and quoting this client. So now you need to do everything you possibly can to keep this client. And this all comes down to delivering high quality customer service. And it's so simple. Seriously, I break it down for you. I'm going to keep it super, super simple. It might be intimidating at first, but once you onboard a couple clients and once you do bookkeeping for a couple clients, you're going to realize, wow, Zach was right. This is so much more simple than I thought. I currently have 56 clients of my own, and I do all the bookkeeping for them. So if I can manage 56 clients, I promise you can manage 5 or 10 clients, no problem. Step number 1, do the bookkeeping weekly. Do not wait until the end of the month. Do all of their bookkeeping weekly, which means you're only recording transactions for 7 days. It's so much more manageable. And then ask questions to your clients every single week. That way, if you have questions like, hey, what was this check? Hey, it looks like you went to the ATM and pulled out 500 cash. What did you buy? Who did you pay? It's so much easier for your clients to answer those questions in real time instead of waiting a month and be like, hey, looks like you pulled out $500 cash 30 days ago. Who did you pay? They might not remember. But if you do it in real time every single week, it'll be so much easier for them to remember. And it'll be so much less intimidating and so much less work for you at the end of the month. Imagine if you waited until the end of the month to do all 30 days of bookkeeping. That's going to be really, really stressful. So just do 7 days at a time, keep up with it, ask questions every week. And then, so bookkeeping is a 3-step process. You categorize transactions, do that weekly. You reconcile accounts, do that monthly. So make sure you get their bank statements and credit card statements and loan statements and amortization schedules on a monthly basis. Every month, on the first day of every month, I email all of my clients, hey, please send me your most recent bank statements and credit card statements. Or sometimes they give me view-only access to their bank accounts. Even better, I can log in by myself, and pull all of those statements without having to send them an email. That is preferred, but some clients won't give you view-only access. So I email them every month on the first day of every month and just say, hey, please send me your most recent bank statements and credit card statements so that I can close out your books for last month. And then finally, once you're done categorizing transactions and reconciling accounts, step number 3 for bookkeeping, generate financial reports. I send my clients their profit and loss from the month before. I try to do it in the first 5 to 10 days of every month. So there you have it, folks. That is how I try to keep things simple. Learning bookkeeping in QuickBooks, keep it simple. Don't spend too much time. Onboarding clients, protect yourself, don't do too much work. And then actually doing the bookkeeping, just keep up with it on a weekly and monthly basis, and I promise you won't be overwhelmed.